Hundreds of years ago, in a kingdom named Shobhapur, lived a painter named Vilochan. Vilochan was very skilled in his art. The paintings he made seemed as if they were about to speak. He possessed such great artistry, yet he often struggled for his livelihood. To pursue his painting, he often visited mountains, forests, and other natural places. These sights of nature inspired him to paint well. One day, Vilochan was wandering in such a hilly area when he saw a hut there. Vilochan wondered whose hut this could be in such a beautiful place. He went inside the hut and saw a Mahatma sage inside. Vilochan greeted him with respect. Upon seeing him, the Mahatma said, "Come, Vilochan, tell me, what brings you here?" Hearing his name from the Mahatma's mouth, Vilochan was astonished and said, "Mahatma ji, how do you know my name?" Then the Mahatma said, "Son, nothing is hidden from me. I know that you are a painter from Shobhapur, and the paintings you create are so beautiful and captivating that they can enchant anyone's heart." Then Vilochan said, "But Rishavar, respected sage, despite having such artistry, my work is not appreciated in this kingdom. Due to poverty, I find no happiness. I even have to struggle to make a living. I don't know how long this is destined to be my fate." Then the Mahatma said, "Son, don't worry now. Your time is about to change. Your fortune is about to awaken, but for this you have to do one thing. Tell me, Rishavar, what can I do to change my destiny?" Then the Mahatma said, "Listen, Vilochan, only when Princess Neelam of Shobhapur and Prince Yashpal of Sherpur get married will your dormant fortune awaken and your luck will change." Vilochan, surprised, said, "Rishavar, what are you saying? The marriage of Princess Neelam and Prince Yashpal? How can this even be possible?" Why? Because these two kingdoms have been enemies for years. Both kings are thirsty for each other's blood. Then the Mahatma said, "No matter what, Vilochan, this marriage will happen, and you will be the medium to make this marriage happen. This marriage will also awaken your destiny." Vilochan said, "But how, Rishavar? Please tell me in detail." The Mahatma said, "Listen, Vilochan, you must have seen Princess Neelam." "Yes, Rishavar, I have seen the princess." So the Mahatma said, "Vilochan, you have to make a beautiful portrait of Princess Neelam, and you will take that portrait to Prince Yashpal of Sherpur. You will show the portrait of Princess Neelam to the prince in private. Upon seeing Neelam's portrait, Prince Yashpal will be captivated by her and become enamored by her beauty. Then, the portrait of Princess Neelam will ask him if he wants to marry her." Vilochan, astonished, said, "Mahatma ji, what kind of things are you saying? How can a portrait speak?" The Mahatma said, "Son, do as I have told you. Make the princess's portrait and bring it to me, because this marriage will happen through your efforts." Vilochan said, "Okay, Rishavar, if you say so, I will make the princess's portrait." After this, Vilochan started working on the princess's portrait. After a month of painstaking effort, he created a very beautiful portrait of the princess, and then he took that portrait back to the sage's hut in the forest and gave it to the Mahatma, saying, "Here, Mahatma ji, I have brought the princess's portrait." Then the Mahatma took the princess's portrait in his hand and closed his eyes for a few moments, chanting some mantra. Then he handed the portrait back to Vilochan, saying, "Son, now take this portrait to Prince Yashpal. This portrait will do the rest of the work itself." That very day, Vilochan took the portrait with him and boarded a ship that was going towards the kingdom of Sherpur. After a few days of travel, he reached the coast of Sherpur. Vilochan walked towards the Sherpur palace. Reaching outside the palace, he said to the guard, "Guard, I want to meet Prince Yashpal." The guard asked, "Who are you?" "My name is Vilochan, and I have come from a distant land across the sea." The guard took Vilochan with him to the prince's room and told the prince, "Prince, this man has come from across the sea to meet you." Then, introducing himself, Vilochan said, "Prince, my name is Vilochan. I have come from the kingdom of Shobhapur, and I am a painter. I want to show you something in private." At the prince's gesture, the guard left immediately. Vilochan showed the portrait of the princess he was holding to the prince, saying, "Prince, I want to show you this portrait." When the prince saw the portrait of Princess Neelam, he praised it, saying, "Wow, painter, you have made a very wonderful and beautiful portrait. Your art is unmatched." Vilochan said, "Prince, you haven't seen the real specialty of this portrait yet." The prince asked in surprise, "Oh, what's so special about IIT?" The prince started looking at the portrait with great surprise. Just then, these words came from the lips of the princess in the portrait. "Prince, don't look at my portrait with such surprise." The prince said, "Oh, what kind of magic is this? This portrait is really speaking." And then the princess's portrait continued, "Prince, will you marry me?" Prince Yashpal looked at the portrait in amazement and asked, "Beautiful one, who are you?" But the portrait didn't answer the prince's question. Then the prince asked Vilochan, "Vilochan, why didn't this portrait answer my question?" Vilochan said, "Prince, this portrait is of Princess Neelam of Shobhapur." The prince said, "But we have a long-standing enmity with the kingdom of Shobhapur. Why did you bring me a portrait of the enemy's princess?" Vilochan said, "Because, Prince, Neelam is your future wife." Upon hearing this, the prince's mouth hung open in surprise, and he said, "What are you saying, painter? How can my marriage happen with the enemy's daughter?" "Prince, what can you do about it? It's what fate has written." "Well, Prince, tell me one thing. Do you not find Princess Neelam suitable for you?" The prince said, "That's not the case, Vilochan. The princess is very beautiful. I would consider myself lucky to marry her, but this marriage is impossible. My father, the Maharaja, will never allow this relationship." Vilochan reassured the prince and said, "Don't worry about that, Prince. Just tell me your thoughts about the princess." The prince said, "Then listen, Vilochan. Upon seeing the princess's portrait, I have become captivated by her beauty, and I am enamored with her. I want to have her. I want to marry her. But Vilochan, nothing happens just because I want it. This marriage will not happen just because I desire it." Vilochan assured the prince and said, "Prince, this marriage will happen, and it will definitely happen. I want to make a portrait of you now." The prince said, "But what will you do with my portrait?" "Prince, I will return to Shobhapur and present your portrait to the princess. Then your portrait will ask Princess Neelam the same question that the princess's portrait asked you." The prince said happily, "Good then, Vilochan, you must make my portrait." After this, Vilochan started working on the prince's portrait. After the portrait was completed, Vilochan said, "Prince, now give me permission to leave. I want to return to Shobhapur today itself." The prince said, "Vilochan, the fire of love that you have kindled in my heart by showing me the princess's portrait, I don't know what will become of it. I don't know if my marriage with Princess Neelam will happen or not. Now this question keeps revolving in my mind all the time." Vilochan said, "Prince, such restlessness is not good. I am sure that Princess Neelam will soon become your wife." Saying so, Vilochan took leave of the prince and left. Returning to Shobhapur, Vilochan wondered how to meet Princess Neelam alone. Suddenly, he remembered that Princess Neelam goes to the temple alone every morning to worship Goddess Gauri. That was the only opportunity to meet the princess alone. The next day, early in the morning, Vilochan stood on the side of the road leading to the Gauri Mata temple, holding the prince's portrait. After a while, Princess Neelam's chariot was seen speeding towards that place. Vilochan called out, "Princess, please listen, stop the chariot." Hearing this, Princess Neelam pulled the reins of the horses and said, "Who are you?" Vilochan said, "Princess, I am Vilochan, a painter living in your city. I want to present you with a portrait I made. That's why I called out to you." Saying so, Vilochan handed the portrait of Prince Yashpal to Princess Neelam. As soon as the princess's eyes fell on the portrait, she thought that he seemed like a radiant prince. Just then the portrait spoke, "Princess Neelam, will you marry me?" Hearing this, Princess Neelam was dumbfounded, and looking at the portrait said, "What a strange thing! This portrait speaks like a human being." The next moment she became angry and said to Vilochan, "Vilochan, what is this absurd act? Why did this portrait ask me such an absurd question?" Vilochan said, "Princess, what this portrait has said is absolutely true." The princess said, "What do you mean?" "Princess, this portrait is of Prince Yashpal of Sherpur. He really wants to marry you." The princess asked in surprise, "But how is this possible? The Sherpur kingdom is our enemy's kingdom." Vilochan said, "Princess, to end the long-standing enmity between the two kingdoms, your and the prince's marriage is very important. Anyway, this is all written by fate. This marriage will happen. Princess, it is in the best interest of both kingdoms that you agree to this marriage." Then the princess said, "Okay, Vilochan, you go now. I will go to the palace and think about this." And then Vilochan left. The princess visited the temple, had the darshan of Goddess Gauri, and then returned to her room in the palace with the prince's portrait. She thought, "I go to the temple every day to have the darshan of Goddess Gauri for the attainment of a good husband. And it was on the way to the temple that I met Vilochan. So, is this also the wish of Goddess Gauri herself? Will my marriage really happen with the Prince of Sherpur?" And then she glanced at the prince's portrait and said to herself, "Whatever may happen, the prince is very handsome." As soon as this thought came, she became shy of herself. Meanwhile, Vilochan once again reached the hut of the Mahatma and said, "Rishivar, what are your orders now?" The Mahatma said, "Vilochan, both Princess Neelam and the prince have seen each other's portraits and have liked each other. But because of the enmity between the two kingdoms, they will not talk to anyone about this marriage and will suffer in silence. This will cause their health to deteriorate, and they will both become unwell. Now you have to go to King Hukum Singh of Shobhapur and tell him that you know the cure for the princess's illness. Mahatma Ji, I will do as you say. Meanwhile, Princess Neelam had really become sad. She thought, what kind of disease have I inflicted upon my heart? I shouldn't have looked at the portrait or fallen in love with it. I don't know if my marriage with the prince will even happen. Thinking these thoughts, the princess sank into an ocean of sorrow and even stopped eating and drinking. One day, a maidservant knocked repeatedly on the door to enter Princess Neelam's room, but the door did not open. Seeing this, the maidservant became worried and thought, what's the matter? Why hasn't the princess opened the door today? I should inform the Maharaja about this quickly. She ran to King Hukum Singh and said, Maharaj, the princess has locked herself in her room. I knocked on the door many times, but she didn't open it. Hearing this, the king immediately reached outside the princess's room. He too knocked on the door and called out many times, but the princess did not open the door. Seeing this, King Hukum Singh became worried and thought, I don't know what has happened to Princess Neelam these days. She neither talks to anyone nor laughs. The Vaidya physician also doesn't know any cure for her illness. Today, the princess has even locked herself in her room. That very day, the king made an announcement in his city that whoever opened the locked door of the princess's room and cured her illness would be given a reward of their choice. Painter Vilokhin also heard this announcement, and he went to Maharaja Hukum Singh and said, Maharaj, I heard your announcement, and I have come to you after hearing it. Maharaj, I have a friend across the sea who can open the locked door of Princess Neelam's room and can also cure her of her illness. The king said, Then go quickly across the sea, bring your friend here. We will make all the arrangements for your journey. Painter Vilokhin boarded the ship given by the king and left for Shirpur that very day. Within a few days, his ship reached Shirpur. He went to the palace and met the prince and said, Princess Neelam's condition is not good. She has become very quiet after seeing your portrait. She has even stopped eating and drinking. Hearing this, the prince became worried and said, This is not good, Vilokhin. Vilokhin continued, She has even locked herself in her room. Despite many attempts, the princess has not opened the door. Everyone tried to open the door but failed. But no one has been successful in this task. So I have come to take you. Come with me, and once we reach Shobhapur, open the locked door of the princess's room. The prince said hesitantly, Should I go to Shobhapur? Vilokhin said, What's the harm in it, prince? The prince said, But if King Hukum Singh finds out that I'm the prince of Shirpur, then there will be great chaos. Vilokhin said, Don't worry, prince. They will not find out at all because you will go there in disguise. The prince said, Then fine, I am ready to go with you. But before going with you, let me inform my father about this. And then the prince called a soldier and said, I am going across the sea for an important task. You inform my father, the Maharaja, about this. Now Prince Yashpal boarded the ship and left for Shobhapur. When they reached the coast of Shobhapur, Vilokhin said, Prince, what have you done to yourself? The prince said, Vilokhin, ever since I saw Princess Neelam's portrait, I have been captivated by her thoughts. I don't enjoy food or drink. I just keep thinking all the time about how I can get the princess somehow. Vilokhin consoled him and said, Prince, don't worry, soon you will meet Princess Neelam. The prince said, I am living in this hope. And then Vilokhin gave some clothes to the prince, saying, Prince, put on these clothes. Wearing these clothes, you will look like a wise sage. And then the prince put on those clothes and disguised himself as a sage. Seeing him, Vilokhin said, Wow, prince, you really look like a very wise sage. Now, no one, not even King Hukum Singh, will be able to recognize you. At that very moment, Vilokhin took the prince with him to King Hukum Singh and said, Maharaj, this is my friend whom I mentioned to you. King Hukum Singh folded his hands and said to Yashpal, disguised as a sage, Rishivar, please somehow open the locked door of the princess's room and make her well soon. If this happens, I will give you whatever you ask for in return. This is my promise. The prince, disguised as a sage, said, Maharaj, I have full faith in your promise. Don't worry. Now that I am here, everything will be all right. I will open the locked door of the princess's room. But Maharaj, only I and Vilokhin will go near the princess's room. The king humbly said, Okay, Rishivar, as you wish. After this, they both stopped outside the princess's room, and then Prince Yashpal called out to Princess Neelam and said, Princess Neelam, open the door. I am Prince Yashpal of Shirpur, standing outside your room. After a few moments, the door of the room opened, and the princess said, Are you really Prince Yashpal? Yes, princess, I had to disguise myself as a sage to reach you. And what have you done to yourself? Then they both stared at each other. Then Vilokhin said to the prince, Prince, you go inside the room with the princess. I will stand outside the room and keep watch. The prince said, "Okay, Viloshin, but be careful, and if anyone comes this way, give us a signal." After this, the prince disguised as a sage, and the princess both went inside the room. The prince said, "Princess, what is this madness? Have you decided to die while still alive by stopping eating and drinking?" The princess said, "Prince, what will I do by living without you? It's better to die than to live like this." The prince said, "No, princess, don't say that. I am still alive, and nothing will happen to you while I am alive. We will live together and die together." The princess said sadly, "Prince, this is not possible. Our union can never happen." Then the prince consoled her and said, "Princess, tomorrow in the court I will ask your father for your hand in marriage. Then you will see that your father will readily agree to your marriage with me." Hearing this, the princess's face lit up and she said, "Can this really happen?" "Yes, princess, it will happen. Now you eat something so that you can gain some strength." After some time, Neelam really started eating with great relish. The next day after this incident, Viloshin, along with the prince disguised as a sage, appeared in the king's court. Then the king said, "Rishavar, I am very pleased with you. It is because of your efforts that our daughter opened the locked door of her room and also ate food. Now tell me, what should I give you as a reward?" "Maharaj, will you give me whatever I ask for?" The king said, "I have given my word. Ask, what do you want?" The prince said, "Then listen, Maharaj, I want Princess Neelam." Hearing this, the king was startled and said, "Do you want the princess?" "Yes, Maharaj, I want to marry Princess Neelam, right here, right now." Hearing the prince's words, the king fell into thought and said, "What have you asked for, Rishavar?" Then he thought for a while. After this, the king said, "Rishavar, I have given you my word, so I cannot refuse to marry Princess Neelam to you." Hearing this, the prince, disguised as a sage, smiled faintly and said, "So, are you ready to marry the princess to me?" "Yes, Rishivar, I will call the princess to the court right now." And then, by exchanging garlands, the prince and princess were married. After this, the king said, "Rishivar, at least tell me where you will take our daughter after the wedding." The prince said, "Maharaj, I am a resident of Shirpur, so I will take the princess to Shirpur." Hearing this, the king was astonished and said, "Are you a resident of Shirpur?" "Yes, Maharaj, I am Prince Yashpal of Shirpur." Hearing this, King Hukum Singh was thunderstruck. He angrily said, "So you are the son of our enemy." The prince said, "What enmity now, Maharaj? I have become your son-in-law now." The king said, "Oh, what a disaster! Our daughter has married the son of an enemy." Hukum Singh was now extremely worried. And then, after making some decision in his mind, he said to Prince Yashpal, "Son Yashpal, now you are not our enemy, but our son-in-law. So today I will end the long-standing enmity between your and our families." "How, Maharaj?" Then the king said, "Son, this crown that you see on my head is the root of all the quarrels. Years ago, our great-grandfather attacked the kingdom of your great-grandfather, and your great-grandfather lost that war. Then our ancestors snatched this royal crown of your family and brought it to our kingdom of Shabhapur. Since then, there has been enmity between your and our families. Son, Yashpal, today I will hand over to you the royal crown of your ancestors and end this age-old enmity." Saying this, the king handed the crown to the prince. "Take it, son. Take care of your trust." The prince took the crown from the king and left for Shirpur with Princess Neelam. After this, the king said to Vilochan, "Vilochan, it is because of you that two enemy kingdoms have now become friends. Therefore, pleased with your work, I appoint you as my royal painter. From today, you will be a courtier in my court, and I also give you 10,000 gold asharfis as a reward." Receiving the reward, Viloshin was very happy. He thanked the king. Now he had become a royal painter and courtier in King Hukum Singh's court. His dormant fortune had awakened, and the rest of his life passed in great happiness and peace. So friends, I sincerely hope that you liked today's story. So like the video and don't forget to leave your good comments. With your comments, please also write your name and the name of your city. So see you in the next story.